The entire class of 30 students, with 29 brutally murdered by a mysterious figure, only one boy, Ganta, survived. But this sole survivor was treated as a murderer. When he woke up, he was immediately handcuffed. Ganta couldn't understand. He clearly saw a person in red commit the murders of his classmates. Why had he become the culprit? At that moment, a lawyer named Tamanoki expressed belief in Ganta, willing to defend him in court. Quickly, Ganta was brought to trial. Amidst numerous accusations and evidence, Ganta was sentenced to death on the spot. Ganta couldn't believe everything that was happening. He completely broke down. At this moment, parents who had lost their children couldn't bear it anymore. They stormed the courtroom, physically attacking Ganta. They couldn't forgive this murderer. Takami's father, Ganta's best friend, also fiercely punched him. At that moment, a video started playing from Ganta's fallen phone. The video showed a conversation between Ganta and the lawyer Tamanoki. In the video, Ganta admitted to being the one who killed all his classmates. He promised to reveal the whole truth to Tamanoki if he could help clear his name. Tamanoki walked over and loudly stated to everyone that when he was talking with Ganta, he had someone secretly record the conversation. With the intention of obtaining evidence, the layers of conspiracy deepened, plunging Ganta into despair. Ganta was transferred to a local private prison. The prison also doubled as a tourist attraction due to the area's economic needs. Here, death row prisoners were not immediately executed but put to work and performed for visitors. On Ganta's first day, the warden Moroku delivered a stern speech, outlining the rules of life in the prison. At that moment, a prisoner accidentally bumped into Ganta. He quickly helped Ganta gather his belongings. However, Moroku demanded that the prisoner hand over the stolen items. The prisoner denied it, leading Moroku to immediately draw his knife and strike him in the chest. The new inmates finally felt the fear that they could be executed at any moment. Moroku cruelly stomped on the prisoner's face, emphasizing that disobedience here meant death. Then Moroku comes to report to his superiors, and the boss of this prison turns out to be lawyer Tamanok. To survive, Ganta had to labor in this environment, reminiscing about his once harmonious life, quickly succumbing to thoughts of not wanting to live. Suddenly, a white-haired girl appeared, and immediately launched an attack on Ganta. However, her intention was not to harm Ganta but to dissuade him from thoughts of death. The girl's name was Shiro. Strangely, she seemed to have known Ganta for a long time, claiming they were best friends, though Ganta had no recollection of ever meeting her. Other inmates, witnessing Ganta and Shiro chatting, approached to cause trouble. Shiro swiftly incapacitated one of the inmates, but another approached her from behind and struck her down. At that moment, Ganta was also surrounded by several people and beaten up. At that moment, there was a sudden explosion above the stage. A huge iron ball rolled down. At that moment, Ganta's chest suddenly exploded with terrifying power. In this prison, inmates are required to wear poison-infused iron collars around their necks. These collars continuously inject poison into their bodies every day. If they do not ingest the antidote candy within 3 days, they will succumb to the poison immediately. But Ganta's duffel bag was nowhere to be found. He had to get the antidote candy within 3 days. In the hospital, Ganta encounters Rinikara, the inmate who accidentally bumped into him earlier. Rinikara informs him that the antidote candy can be obtained through purchase. Within this prison, there circulates a currency known as CP, which inmates can use to buy food, antidote candy, and even earn sentence reductions. Furthermore, an obstacle course race is scheduled where the first-place winner can receive 100,000 CP coins. To survive, Ganta is compelled to participate in the competition, but the next moment, Rinikara clandestinely reaches for a phone, connecting to Tamanoki on the other end. Amidst the turmoil in the rest area, Masaru, known as the Boxing King, arrives. In this prison, submission to him is paramount for survival. To survive, Ganta could only force a smile on his face. At that moment, Shiro also came here, attracting unwanted attention from the male inmates who have not seen a woman in a long time. At a critical moment, Moroku rushed in to stop them. The competition was about to commence. Everyone changed into their outfits and appeared on stage. Tamanoki ordered his subordinates to ramp up the danger level of the obstacles to the maximum. Subsequently, he proclaimed to the audience that it was all just a show. Poor Ganta thought it was just a normal obstacle course. As more and more participants contemplated quitting, snipers were positioned outside the arena, ready to deter any attempts to withdraw. However, The spectators thought it was a realistic performance and cheered enthusiastically. The true despair was only known to those in the competition. Facing death at every turn, Shiro caught up with Ganta at this moment. Together, they navigated through one challenge after another. While Shiro appeared playful, she was always protecting Ganta. On the other side, the boxing king Masaru used his underlings as human shields. As the competition neared its end, only Ganta, Shiro, and Masaru remained on the field. The rules of the final round were simple. Whoever seized the black ball and persevered till the end would be the victor. The three of them went straight for the black ball. Ganta was the first to grab the black ball. But at that moment, the ground began to collapse, revealing countless poison spikes below. But the ground would continue to collapse until only the last slab remained. And it's going to keep collapse. Masaru cornered Ganta as the ground crumbled beneath them. And Ganta finally stopped retreating. He was going to resist. He was going to survive. And he was going to clear his name. At that moment, Shiro, who had obtained the black ball, made a careless mistake and fell down. Fortunately, she managed to hook her leg onto the slab that hadn't collapsed yet. Masaru, on the other hand, wasn't as fortunate. When Ganta arrived, he saw Shiro covered in wounds, realizing that she had sustained injuries while protecting him. As the slab collapsed once more, Shiro passed the black ball to Ganta in the final moment. However, in the last moment, Ganta chose to save Shiro instead. As Ganta hadn't acquired the antidote candy, his life was now down to its final day. When Ganta returned to his cell, Rinikura approached him and handed over the antidote candy. However, Rinikura claimed that he was giving Ganta his own portion of the antidote, aiming to earn Ganta's trust. In this place where survival was paramount, Rinikura would not overlook any advantage he could exploit. Simultaneously, Rinikura was continuously betraying Ganta's whereabouts, obtaining prison currency from Tamanoki. While Rinikura and Ganta were chatting, a bell rang out, causing a sharp pain in Ganta's heart. Standing atop the clock was the man in red who had slaughtered Ganta's classmates. Known as Original Sin, he had been sealed somewhere within this prison, but had managed to escape during a malfunction in the system. The moment he appeared, he began attacking the inmates present with his supernatural power, leaving Rinikura feeling terrified. However, Ganta was filled with anger. It was Original Sin who had used this terrifying power to take the lives of all his classmates. Ganta once again awakened the mysterious power within him. Meanwhile, Tamanoki was observing Ganta's every move. Despite Ganta seemingly delivering a powerful blow, Original Sin emerged unscathed, wearing a mocking expression before swiftly departing from the scene. Due to exhaustion, Ganta fell into unconsciousness. By this time, the prison's security systems had been restored. Original Sin was once again sealed away. When Ganta woke up, Shiro was already by his side, keeping watch. With the reappearance of Original Sin, the inmates began discussing rumors about his past appearances. Original Sin had appeared in the prison once before. He destroyed the wall in a flash. Since then, he's been held in the G wing of the prison. Upon learning this, Ganta resolved to find and avenge his classmates by killing Original Sin. However, Moroku quickly caught wind of Ganta's intentions and dispatched guards to apprehend him. Rinikura, not wanting Ganta to cause trouble for himself, advising him to cease his actions. Moreover, there was no actual Block G within the prison. Shiro suddenly seemed lost in thought, recalling a time when she had stumbled upon the gates of Block G while wandering the prison's corridors. At that moment, robot guards detected their presence. Shiro led them through a secret passage into the darkness, where they desperately fled. Soon, they arrived at the hidden Block G, but the robot guards caught up to them. Cannonball after cannonball came at them in an instant. Everything around them was blown to smithereens, just as the robots prepared to attack once more. Shiro suddenly kicks it to the ground. However, the robot quickly rose to its feet and aimed its laser directly at Shiro. Ganta remembered the power he had inadvertently unleashed before and believed it could save Shiro. But no matter how hard he tried, he struggled to harness that immense power once more. When Ganta saw this immense power, he immediately thought of the culprit behind the murder of his classmates, Original Sin. Fueled with anger, he charged towards this man, ready for a decisive battle. But Ganta, who couldn't control his power, was no match for him. The man, known as Senji and who called himself Crow, strangely referred to Ganta as Woodpecker. Meanwhile, in a closed conference room, a group of top tycoons were talking. They were talking about the upcoming battle between Crow and Woodpecker the next day. speculating on who would emerge victorious. It turned out that the inmates of this prison were just pawns to them. Entities like Crow and Ganta with superhuman abilities were arranged to fight each other, with these individuals placing bets on the outcomes. The prison overseer, Tamanoki, was responsible for orchestrating it all. Crow had long known that his opponent was Ganta, but Ganta doesn't know anything about it. In that moment, Ganta only desired to eliminate the man before him who had ruined his life. Unable to harness the mysterious power within him, Ganta resorted to swinging an iron rod. Watching Ganta in front of him, Crow curiously asked why. Despite losing so much blood, he still refused to use his branches of sin abilities. Upon hearing this, Ganta realized the key to using branches of sin's power. That was to utilize his own blood. Ganta began attempting to control his blood, and in an instant, that enigmatic power surged through his entire being. The next moment, he delivered a powerful blow to Crow, and instantly broke Crow's defenses. But it didn't hurt Crow's body. Crow told Ganta that he was not original sin, and had never left the prison. He disclosed that inmates like them, possessing branches of sin abilities, were all held in the hidden G block of the prison. Just then, a capture team dispatched by Tamanoki arrived at the scene. They administered a sedative to the group. Shiro and Rinikura were expelled from G block. Crow was hospitalized for his injuries. Although he managed to block Ganta's strike at the time, he ended up with 2 broken ribs. As a newly awakened superpowered individual, Ganta was bound in the laboratory by Tamanoki. Tamanoki directly confessed that he was the one who fabricated Ganta's wrongful conviction initially. He also admitted to orchestrating the falsification of criminal evidence through others. His intent was solely to study Ganta's superhuman abilities. In preparation for the upcoming duel match the next day, Tamanoki outlined some rules to Ganta and promised him a glimpse of original sin, the one responsible for massacring his entire class. If he continued winning, to make Ganta obedient, Tamanoki played out scenes of past bloody battles, forcing Ganta to watch repeatedly throughout the day. By the end, Ganta was utterly hopeless. He had no choice but to agree to Tamanoki's demand to participate in the match. Tamanoki informed him that winning would grant him the candy antidote and prison's CP currency. However, losing would be a dead end. Even in Ganta's death, they would not let go of his body. It would continue to be taken back to the laboratory for research. The next day arrived. Ganta's first battle has finally arrived. Ganta bit into his finger, and suddenly, his blood seemed imbued with life, rushing towards Crow like a cannonball, only to be effortlessly deflected. Ganta just didn't think it was powerful enough, so he manipulated more blood to attack Crow. Yet, all of this fell within Crow's grasp, as the branches of sin ability solely relied on one's blood, but a person's blood is always finite. Ganta didn't possess the ability to directly transmute blood into weapons like Crow. Instead, he condensed his blood into bullets and fired them. Soon, Ganta's body began to lose copious amounts of blood. At that moment, Ganta's vision darkened, his body weakened. Seeing that Ganta was unable to continue his assault, Crow no longer held back his strength and immediately launched an attack. As it turned out, Crow utilized the stickiness of his blood, extracting a large amount of blood from his body and transforming it into a large cleaver. This allowed his blood to remain connected to his body continuously, preventing anemia. This rich combat experience is far beyond Ganta's ability. By now, Ganta was covered in injuries, while Crow remained unscathed. Meanwhile, Shiro was worried about Ganta being bullied in G-Block, as he had always been a victim of bullying since childhood. Even unable to defeat Shiro, despite this, Ganta had a strong side to him. Even after being knocked down numerous times, he would get up again and again, using cover to his advantage. Ganta stealthily approached Crow and promptly delivered a lethal blow to his chest. In the end, Ganta emerged victorious in the match, also obtaining the candy antidote. However, the defeated Crow wasn't as fortunate. Although he wasn't executed, but he had to have one of his eyes gouged out. It was the only way to satisfy the rich and powerful's peculiarities. On the other hand, Rinikura found out that the sister he had been looking for is also imprisoned in the G-Zone, so he began to encourage Shiro to go with him to rescue Ganta. In truth, he sought to use Shiro as a distraction for the guards, to evade pursuit. Rinikura disguised himself as a guard, and cut off the prison's power supply. He then betrayed Shiro's location to the guards, unbeknownst to Rinikura. This action awakened a true demon. Simultaneously, in G block of the prison, Rinikura's sister, Minatsuki, was being harassed by a man. At a critical moment, Ganta saved her. Immediately, Minatsuki took Ganta and hid in her room. Through their conversation, they both agreed that this place was crazy. As a girl, Rinikura had long grown weary of this life. Minatsuki removed her clothes, revealing various scars on her back. Her mother had passed away when she was young, and since then, she had endured her father's abuse. In extreme despair, one day she suddenly manifested supernatural abilities and killed her father. Both she and her brother were subsequently imprisoned. Ganta decided to escape the insane prison with her, but Minatsuki's weak physical condition led to their quick capture. From the guards, Ganta learned that Minatsuki's codename was Hummingbird, his opponent the next day. The following day, they faced each other in the arena, but Ganta couldn't bring himself to lay a hand on Minatsuki. In the next moment, Minatsuki attacked Ganta. So this is Minatsuki's true colors. She pretended to be pitiful to entice Ganta, with the aim of making him lower his guard against her. Ganta angrily launched an attack on Minatsuki. At that moment, Rinikura also entered the arena, shielding his sister. Yet, Minatsuki had become deranged. She suspended Rinikura in midair and used him as a shield against Ganta's attacks. Rinikura, despite this, harbored no resentment, as he knew Minatsuki had once been a kind girl. In the past, they had a happy family. However, a great disaster struck. Minatsuki was tragically pinned under rubble, and her mother chose to save a potted plant instead of her, betrayed by the most trusted person. Since then, Minatsuki's heart has been twisted to the point of perversion, taking advantage. Minatsuki bound Ganta. Yet, Ganta began to berate her harshly and, seizing a distracted moment, fiercely headbutt her, securing victory in this manner. But that's what made all the spectators unhappy, because they wanted to see a bloody fight. But Ganta didn't care, and gave the middle finger to all of them. In a dark room, a mysterious figure in a wheelchair continuously called out for Shiro. It turns out that Shiro's real identity is Original Sin. However, she had a dual personality. She doesn't know that her other personality is Original Sin, and Ganta doesn't know anything about it, because in his memories, Shiro has always been his Ultraman, always there to help him when he was in danger. The two had met 10 years ago. They lived together in Ganta's mother's laboratory. Ganta would always bring Shiro her favorite pudding, but she had no appetite due to days of injections and physical examinations. Feeling only pain all over, Ganta comforted her, advising her to shout loudly if she encountered something unpleasant, as Ultraman would come to her rescue. Shiro, however, was not as naive as Ganta, knowing that those were all just TV shows. There's no Ultraman in reality. Annoyed, she knocked over Ganta's Ultraman figure, leaving Ganta disheartened as he left the room. Suddenly, a menacing dog targeted Ganta. Terrified, Ganta called out for Ultraman, but Ultraman did not appear. Instead, Shiro descended from above to rescue him, becoming the Ultraman in Ganta's heart ever since. Years passed, and as Ganta grew older and forgot many childhood memories, his primary concern now was Minatsuki after her impending punishment. Minatsuki and Rinikura intended to use CP coins to offset Minatsuki's punishment, but during their search for Tamanoki, Ganta was ambushed by a girl. Meanwhile, Rinikura finally located Tamanoki, who informed him that CP coins couldn't be used in G-Block. An enraged Rinikura charged at Tamanoki, but he was almost killed by Tamanoki's men. He is a monk named Genkaku, the caretaker in this prison responsible for capturing inmates attempting to escape. Meanwhile, Ganta was led to a strange room, where many other superpowered individuals like him were gathered, forming a team with the intention of escaping together. The team captain, Tamaki, extended an invitation to Ganta to join their breakout plan, but Ganta's sole focus at the moment was to rescue Minatsuki. During this time, Minatsuki's mindset underwent a significant transformation since meeting Ganta. Her inner darkness seemed to dissipate. In order to persuade Ganta to join them, Tamaki orchestrated a hack into the prison punishment system, altering Minatsuki's punishment to a mere haircut, thus sparing her from a more severe penalty. Eventually, Ganta agreed to join their organization. However, their location was soon pinpointed by Tamanoki, who dispatched the caretaker Genkaku to hunt them down. Despite Ganta and his companion's superpowers, they were unable to affect Genkaku in any way. Just as Genkaku was about to strike Ganta down, Shiro's timely intervention saved him. When Genkaku saw Shiro, he turned around and left. Then Ganta and the others began to discuss their escape plan. They saved the material they were framed for on a flash drive, and then they made it public after they escaped from the prison. Today marked the day of their planned jailbreak. Captain Tamaki unleashed full firepower, Swiftly taking out all the guards, they planned ahead to block G to seize control of the control room, then open the main gate. As they passed through the corridor, they triggered guard robots that immediately released sulfuric acid to attack them. In that moment, Kurako decisively threw the flash drive to Ganta and braced the collapsing bridge, enduring the corrosive effects of the acid, determined to ensure everyone's successful escape. Seeing her teammates flee successfully, Kurako decided to counterattack. With a resounding crash, the iron bridge collapsed, and she fell into the abyss. Under Kurako's protection, they finally reached the next level. All they needed to do was activate the elevator to proceed to the lower floors. As they stepped out of the elevator, they were met with a hail of bullets. Ganta was paralyzed with fear. At that moment, his companions were trying their best to protect Ganta, because the flash drive in Ganta's hand was the hope of all. Ganta immediately launched an attack against Jankaku, but his superpowers remained ineffective against him. Strangely, Jankaku showed no intention of killing him. Instead, he turned and walked away, leaving Ganta puzzled. At that moment, Shiro suddenly leaped out from a ventilation duct, snatched the flash drive from Ganta, and threw it out. With the explosion of the flash drive, their plan was thwarted, and the group despondently returned to their base. Fortunately, Kurako had survived. Just then, Rokuro burst in through the door. Everyone was relieved to see him alive, but Rokuro angrily demanded to know who had sabotaged his plan. The flash drive was originally meant to blow everyone up together. It turned out he was a mole planted among them by Tamanoki. Meanwhile, Captain Tamaki, who had been working with him, was now missing. Rokuro immediately ordered the guards to eliminate them, but Crow arrived just in time. Kurako also fought back. With Crow's formidable assistance, the guards were swiftly taken down. Kurako wanted to invite Crow to join them, but Crow was uninterested and left. In the midst of all this, Ganta fell into contemplation. He desired to become stronger, so he sought out Crow and asked him to teach him how to control his blood power. Under Crow's guidance, Ganta successfully mastered this new skill. Meanwhile, Shiro and Kurako had been captured by Jankaku. Ganta rushed to their rescue. Faced with heavily armed enemies, Ganta utilized the newly acquired skill to repel the guards effectively. As the door behind Jankaku suddenly opened, Captain Tamaki emerged. At this point, he had completely lost his sanity and began attacking indiscriminately. Eventually, Tamaki targeted Shiro. Ganta immediately stood in front of Shiro. This time, it was up to him to protect Shiro. Despite being repeatedly knocked down, Ganta kept getting back up, determined to awaken Tamaki. Even if there was just a slim chance, he refused to give up. In that moment, Tamaki regained his senses, recalling the comrades he had fought alongside. But at that moment, Jankaku stabbed through Kurako's body. Enraged, Ganta swiftly condensed the blood in his hand and launched a powerful attack. Yet, Jankaku effortlessly blocked Ganta's strongest strike with just one hand. Ganta, facing the formidable Jankaku, began to resent himself for his inability to protect those around him. At the same time, Shiro's broken legs instantly recovered. In the next moment, she stepped in front of Ganta. Observing Shiro's expression, Jankaku recognized her as the original Sin. Ganta once again shielded Shiro. This time he wanted to be Ultraman. Terrifying energy erupted from Ganta's body, surging towards Jankaku. Just as Jankaku tried to dodge, Tamaki firmly held him back. After the radiance faded, Shiro passed out. Before his death, Tamaki gave his candy antidote to Ganta. Kurako, along with the remaining two companions, escaped from this prison. Ganta chose not to leave because he still had his comrades here, the people he had vowed to protect.